Hello everyone, and welcome back. In recent lessons, we have been discussing resiliency, stress and development, and emotions. If you haven't had a chance to see those lessons, I would encourage you to go back, tune in, and check them out. For those of you who may be tuning in for the first time, my name is Lauren. I work for a group called Compass Mark. I provide a program called Leaders of Future Generations. We do this at several different schools in the area where we find kids who have leadership potential, and we help them hone in on their skills and grow as individuals, but also as leaders. So we thought with the current predicament that we would bring our lessons to you at home. So today we're going to be continuing our lessons. Today we're going to start by talking about confidence. So learning and discussing confidence today, strengths and how they impact our self-confidence, but also something called self-talk. But first, as always, we are going to begin with our quote of the day. Rob Liano, a life coach and a best-selling author, states that self-respect, self-worth, and self-love all start with self. Stop looking outside yourself for your value. Okay, we'll come back to that later. So to first look at self-confidence, we like to look at our strengths. So what is a strength? A strength is being good or excelling at something. We all have them, just as we all have weaknesses. They make us unique. A strength could be a talent you have, a subject you're really good at in school, or a quality about you. Knowing what your strengths are gives us more confidence and motivation to continue working on our strengths. Confidence is not something that we necessarily have naturally. It's something that has to be nurtured and something that can change really rapidly. A large part of building our confidence is building something called self-esteem, which you probably heard, but I don't know if you really know what it means. So self-esteem is how you understand or value yourself as an individual. So it's possible to have low self-esteem. It's also possible to have high self-esteem, but it doesn't mean that because you have low self-esteem that you're always going to have low self-esteem, or because you have high self-esteem, you're just always going to have high self-esteem. Of course not. These things change really quickly, and it's usually dependent on the stuff that's going on outside of ourselves that kind of affects and impacts the way that we feel about who we are. Okay, so our self-esteem directly impacts our strengths because when we don't have good self-esteem, we tend to lose motivation and sometimes even quit working on the things that we were working on or working on our strengths. However, if we can build our self-esteem and how we feel about ourselves and see true value in who we are and what we can bring to the table, we will feel more encouraged to work on our strengths. Building your self-esteem can seem like a daunting task, especially at a time in your life where you are rapidly changing. Just if you happen to tune into our development lesson, if you haven't, I suggest you go back and check it out. If you have, then you know that our emotions have a huge impact on how we behave and how we think. When we try to reject our emotions instead of dealing with them, they can lead to more problems and a lower self-esteem. Just like our friend Amy and how she experienced a day that was filled with lots of different emotions, her self-esteem and her confidence levels were all over the place, and that impacted the way that she felt about the things that were going on. One major component to how we feel about ourselves and our abilities is not just what we do and don't do in our actions, but it's actually the way that we talk to ourselves. So I'm not talking about you sitting in a room and talking aloud to yourself, and maybe you're someone who does that, and that's fine. No judgment here. But what I'm talking about is something called self-talk. There's positive and there's negative self-talk, and this refers to the inner monologue that goes on in your mind. So as we go throughout our days, even as adults, we are constantly reacting to things going on. And even if you don't react on the surface with your body and your actions, you're reacting inside your mind. So this is kind of like the inner things that you're constantly saying to yourself in response to everything else. So let's say you raise your hand in class and you really want to get called on because you know the answer, and the teacher calls on somebody else. If your immediate thought is, I never get called on, this always happens to me, nobody likes my answers, how are you going to feel? You're going to feel awful, and you're probably going to start to not raise your hand in class. because that's your memory of it, is how bad you felt about it. When in reality, that teacher didn't choose not to pick you because they don't like you or because they don't like your answers, but because they just happened to pick somebody else. I've been in that situation. Sometimes it is hard to figure out who you want to call on, and you do it really quickly, and you don't mean anything by it. But if we take that personally and we start to fill our head with all of these negative thoughts, we're going to start to feel really badly about it. Or how about another situation? You are walking by a group of people and you hear them laughing, and you immediately think to yourself, they're talking about me. Nobody likes me. I should be embarrassed. Why am I even here? I need to go somewhere else. They don't want to see me. And you keep saying these really negative things inside your head, then you're going to start to feel really awful. And the truth is, they might not even be laughing about you, but you just filled your head with all these really negative thoughts, and now you feel bad, and you might actually act poorly on it as well. You might choose to leave the lunchroom or lash out at them or ignore them. But in reality, it might have been nothing, and the only person that really upset you was your own head. So self-talk is the things that we say inside of our head all the time. When we tell ourselves that things aren't fair, or that things always happen to us or never happen to us, or all these really bad things. But just because we say bad things doesn't mean that we have to say bad things to ourselves. We can actually start to try to fill our head with good things, good positive self-talk. If you can try to look at a situation in a positive way instead of seeing it negative, then it can make you feel better, and it can make you act better. It can completely change the way that you think about things. So much of the way that we feel moment to moment is based on how we react to things in our mind. And when it comes to self-confidence, if you fill your head with negative thoughts, you're going to lose self-confidence and you're going to lose value in yourself. However, if you can change the dialogue, go back to the beginning, back to the original thought, and make it a positive one filled with hope and belief, you know what? I'll get called on next time. Or just because I didn't get called on doesn't mean I didn't know the right answer. Or they're probably laughing about something funny. I should ask them what it was. Or they're probably not laughing at me. Or that has nothing to do with me. I'm cool. I'm good. I got my lunch. I'm going to go eat it. Whatever you want to say to yourself that keeps you feeling positive and confident instead of trying to draw on what could be bad or what could be going on negatively. It can help build confidence in yourself. The last part of self-confidence I'm going to talk to you about is something called self-perception. Self-perception is the way we see ourselves in comparison to those around us. This takes self-confidence a step further. It's not just about how you feel about yourself, but now it's about how you feel about yourself in relation to the other kids in your class, or your teachers, or your family members. It allows us to reflect on how we relate to other people. It is a healthy thing to evaluate yourself and where you stand in comparison to other people. It's not a bad thing. It can help motivate you to work harder, or to be proud of yourself, or to reach other goals, or to try new things. But it can easily become a negative thing too, so you have to be careful. It's normal to compare ourselves. It's a natural thing. We all do it. But the key is not to focus on what makes that other person so great or amazing, but to focus on what makes you amazing. We're all different. We all have our own sets of strengths. If we were all the same, think about how incredibly boring that would be. If every single person had the same strengths, the same weaknesses, liked the same things, did the same stuff, this world would be way different. And everything would be super boring. And we probably wouldn't be able to accomplish anything because we'd only be working on the same stuff because we all have the same strengths. Take a sports team, for example. In football, you have defense and you have offense. And those players have very specific roles. So each of those groups do very different things. And within each of those groups, each player has a specific strength, and they're placed in a particular part of the field for a very good reason. And coaches and teams spend so much time calculating and figuring out exactly what those players are going to do for each play so that they can be successful. You wouldn't want to sub the team kicker for a defensive position, for example, because that's not their strength. Now they could try, but they might not succeed. And that doesn't mean that they're a bad athlete or that they should lose value in themselves. It simply means that they weren't meant to have that role because their strength is being the kicker, which is something completely different. We each have a role to play in every aspect of our lives. We have strengths and abilities to bring to the table that other people might not. So I encourage you to focus on your own confidence, focus on your own strengths, what you're good at doing, and be careful with how you talk to yourself. Think about it in every situation. Even when you find out what's for dinner, or if your friend's gonna call you, or little things that you don't think are a big deal, but recognize for yourself what the thoughts are that are going through your head, and if you would say that they're positive or negative. And think about how they have an impact on your self-confidence. Confidence when it comes to leadership is also extremely important. I don't know about you, but if I had a leader who didn't seem very confident, I'd probably be kind of wary of their ability to be a leader, right? Confidence shows that you have respect for yourself, that you're sure of yourself and you believe in yourself. But confidence also goes beyond that, where you have the ability to respect and recognize the strengths and weaknesses of other people. And you have the confidence to help motivate them and influence them in a particular direction. It also helps you stay positive in situations that could be seen as negative. If you can help the whole group use better self-talk and help motivate you to look at what you can do better or how you as a group can overcome obstacles, then that's a really good quality to have in a leader. And you're gonna have people who are gonna want to follow your lead because you're showing them such a good, positive way to look at things, and they'll find value in themselves and in their team. So let's go back to that quote from earlier. Self-respect, self-worth, self-love, and self-confidence. Oops, sorry, I am not saying this quote correctly. Let's go back to it. Self-respect, self-worth, self-love, all start with self. Stop looking outside of yourself for your value, by Rob Liano. That's what I get for not reminding myself what the quote is. What I think he is trying to tell us here is that self-respect, self-worth, self-love, and self-confidence, they come from ourselves. They don't come from other people. Yes, encouragement from others and, good affirmations from our teachers and our family members, they can absolutely help us build those aspects of ourselves. But constantly comparing our self-worth to other people's worth is only going to make us feel like life is a competition and everything I do has to be winning or I don't have worth. And that's just not the case. And that is a really unhealthy way to look at life. So here are my discussion questions for you today. What would you consider your strengths? So I'm going to take some time. Think about it. What are you really good at doing? Like I said, this might be a talent or something you're really good at, just like an activity. It could be a school subject that you're really good at, but it could also be a quality. Like I mentioned earlier in a video, maybe you're a good listener, maybe you're funny, maybe you're independent, maybe you are charismatic. Okay, what are these qualities that make you, that give you strengths? Then I want you to focus on a weakness. So what is one weakness that you have that you're working on? We all have weaknesses. It doesn't make us bad people, it makes us human. So try to think of one and try to focus on what you could do to work on it. Finally, how do you talk to yourself and how does it impact you? So I want you to really focus for yourself on what your inner monologue sounds like. How do you talk to yourself and how does it have an impact on you? Okay, now for our at-home activity suggestion for today. I think this one is a pretty fun one. It involves some arts and crafts and utilizing things that you have in your house. Problem solving is one of the best ways to build your self-esteem. Learning where your weaknesses might lie and where your strengths lie while actually trying to solve some kind of problem. So today, I want you to try to work with people in your house to create a boat. Yes, a boat. Not one that could fit people, but a boat. So work as a team. Find recyclable materials around your house, such as milk jugs, cans, cardboard, glass jars. You could even add in things like straws, tape if you must, glue, or anything else you can find, really. And I want you to try to make a boat. I want you to experiment with different ways to try to make it. And I want you to really try to use the strengths of everyone in your group to see how you could most effectively and successfully make a boat. You could try your creation in your bathtub or in your sink or something so that you can see if it actually floats and if you were successful. I would love to see it. So if you do this, I would really love you to take a picture of it and post it on our Facebook so I can see your amazing creation. I hope you enjoyed our lesson today on self-confidence. Be well, be safe, and I will be seeing you soon.